Welcome to the Possibility Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Devin Henderson, and I believe something greater is always possible for you. Well, here we are. My buddy Mark.
Yes. Nice house.
Yeah, thank you. This is my house. Yes.
Very nice.
I chose the painting. Actually, you painted it. I bought it from you.
I did the painting.
That's amazing. Where are we, man?
We are in Mystic Lake Casino in, is it Lake Prior? Prior Lake.
Is that where we are? Yeah, Prior Lake. That's
Prior
right. Lake Prior or Prior Lake. Or...
South of Minneapolis.
Yeah.
We're Minneapolis. Or as they say here, Minneapolis.
Are we south? I thought we were north. I'm not even kidding. I got the Uber
and
I was working
in
in the car. I flew in.
See,
so
I drove
yes,
in.
You're orient.
You're at a higher class.
It's an illusion.
The thing is, I started my Pinto, and that baby we're right up here. So
yeah, man.
This is called Phil, an intro.
Yes. Yeah. The intro lasts an hour, and then we get into the topic
for a couple minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, so we're in Prior Lake, Minnesota. We're at the Mystic Lake Casino and Hotel. We're gigging together, man.
I know.
Yeah. Mark is a dear friend. He's a keynote speaker. He's a mentor. He's been speaking longer than he's been alive.
I actually, my first keynote was when I left the womb.
Really?
Yeah, I talked to the doc.
I thought it was before.
Yeah.
You told me that before. You're lying now.
I criticized the doctor. His delivery methods really weak, very weak.
Mom, you did fine, Doc. That was a little rough.
Yes.
So Mark just gave the opening keynote, and I'm closing later today. And you know what? I finally got to hear your full keynote. I've never in a live setting listened. I've listened to like audio tapes of you because I'm kind of a fanboy. There's CDs. I know. There's a lot about
cassettes?
me.
Do you have cassettes?
Well, so let me think here. I have a CD on like your de-stressing program or whatever.
Okay.
I listened to it so many times because it's so good. And that was probably 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah. What I do now kind of started that way. Mm-hmm. I started just doing a program on stress management just because I talked about the power of humor, and humor is good stress management. Kind of put it together. Then it morphed into this whole mental health thing, which is, I got lucky. I just happened to hit something that's hot now, which I didn't realize was the pandemic before the pandemic.
Yeah. I've seen his message morph. It's been like, you don't think you're going to watch someone at Mark's area of his profession. You kind of think he's there, he's arrived, but then somehow he went like this. And we're going to get into that later because we're talking about finding your mental health by finding your day. And you'll see what that means. And
I need to pay you for the compliments.
Just give it all. Yeah, 20. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Just take care of that early. We don't have to worry about that later.
But I also think this is our actual first gig together. I think. Now we've showcased a lot together,
and we've worked together, but not the same day where we could see each other. You were there earlier. I had to leave. And that's often we're normally speakers are passing ships in the night. He was here yesterday. Oh well, I had to leave. That sort of thing.
And so here we are.
So you sit in the audience and did not heckle me.
You couldn't hear me.
Yeah.
Well,
you'll hear me.
Yeah, Mark's going to be in my session later, and he is definitely going to heckle. So he asked for a mic.
Yes.
This one, he's like telling the stand, can I have a mic this
I'm
afternoon?
a professional heckler.
Yeah.
I mean, I go all the way. If you're going to heckle.
Well, decent sized audience today, like 700 people. Spoke to a group who they're DSMs. They deal with people with developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and you did a great job calling them. Someone called them heroes, and you got up and called them angels, which is true. And I mean, you have a background of caregiving, and so you really do have a deep sense of understanding and appreciation for that specific crowd. So it was cool to see that come through.
Being a caregiver, and then also watching other caregivers with family members. I don't know if there's a profession I admire more. I mean, you are, and we have some speakers that were former caregivers or hospice workers or whatever, the same kind of folks. And I admire those folks. They really, there are givers and takers in life. They're givers,
Yeah, man.
And we need more of those.
They call them caregivers for a reason,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, the keynote was phenomenal. If you book speakers,
what do you want? Another $20?
Yeah, I am. I just put it right there.
feel like you're, what's that called, busking?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. This is why I do podcasts. I don't get sponsorships yet. So my guests, I just compliment them and they pay me. That's the format.
It's a good format. It's a great idea. You're a disruptor.
Well, if Mark will tell you later how to get a hold of him. But if up front, I'll just say markmayfield.com. If you book speakers, he's phenomenal. He's in high demand. I'm serious. Every time I talk to him, he's like, yeah, I'm on a plane again. Yeah, I'm going somewhere. In a nutshell, like he said, his message is about finding mental health in the life, in the workplace, and later I'm going to ask him to share some tips on that.
Yep. Well, it's a culmination of, well over 50 years actually, and I finally decided, it was kind of boiling up inside. It was time to talk about it, and I think COVID had a lot to do with it, because COVID just, COVID was awful. We all know COVID was awful, and we don't debate all the political aspects of COVID. But one thing for sure we cannot debate is that it brought mental health to the forefront, which there was something good that came from COVID, and we should have been doing it a long time ago. I mentioned today, I just discovered this the other day, that Congress sanctioned Mental Health Month in 1949 for people coming home from the World War II, and then it's like, we did nothing. We have a month. Okay, we're done. Now everybody will be better. And it was like we went to sleep at the wheel. And I'm just stunned by that. We also have a mental health day, May 10, but that's just a picture, or it's like a token thing. We have to do more about it. And COVID brought that to the forefront. The numbers are staggering. The mental health crisis, not just in the general population, but I'm particularly concerned about the youth, because eventually they're going to be running this place, and those mental health crisis and issues can carry over. And the number I remember is in just a couple of years ago, it was a Harvard study, 52% of young adults age 18 to 29 have experienced feelings of hopelessness and depression, and half of them have considered self-harm. That's, to me, a staggering number. If we would say there's 5% of the people, that we'd think that was awful. No, half of those 52% of the people in that age category have considered self-harm. So we need to get a hold of this, because right now they're 18 or 19 or 20. Eventually they're going to be, in better positions of leadership. And what do we do about it?
Yeah,
that's the question.
Well, you shared that in your keynote about the Mental Health Month, and was set way back after World War. I was like, I had no idea it went that far back, and that it took this long to finally. One thing you talked about in your keynote, actually take action, not just decide that it's an issue, but then finally, like you said, COVID. Sometimes hard situations push you to take action, and that was one of the things, like you say, kind of the silver lining, kind of the blessing in it. Yeah. Even though it brought the problem to the top, it also brought the solution up with it, which is totally we're trying to get to, right? Yeah, the awareness is half the battle.
There's no question about it. Like I said, I've been, like we mentioned, I started speaking right out of the womb. I'm older than dirt. In fact, I invented dirt. I don't know if you knew that. And so I've never, in all my years of being a speaker and watching paradigms, and now it's change, and now it's customer service, and I've never seen a topic like mental health rush to the forefront like this has. And I happen to be lucky enough to be able to talk about it, and it's more cathartic for me probably than it is. There's a selfish aspect too, I'm going to be honest with you, but I'm glad that it's rushed to the forefront like it has.
Yeah. Well, that's a great setup for where we're going. So I'm excited to have kind of see what specific tips are going to be. So we might just have you give your entire keynote. Actually, in fact, and speaking of keynote, I get to do something I've never gotten to do. I get to introduce Mark, which I know I've basically already introduced you. But what I mean is, I'm going to read your introduction that people read for you before you give your keynote.
Oh yeah.
This is the introduction. The first. You know what? I did hear you speak one time at the NSA Kansas City annual meeting.
Oh, that's right.
I just realized
our banquet.
That.
Our banquet.
Yeah. But it wasn't. It was like a keynote / entertainment. So it was more funny than it was message. So
in fact, I remember that because a lot of people have. I attract bad situations.
Tell me about it.
The more. Every possible thing that could go wrong at an engagement has happened to me, and so. In fact, one year at NSA, they called it disaster or nightmare on the stage or something like that. Speaker's nightmare. And I I did a little short story in between each one of the speakers because so many crazy things have happened. And so that night at the NSA event, that's basically what I did. I just talked about, and there was a message.
Yeah.
I talked about all these goofy things that had happened
to
me.
You did. It was so good. I remember exactly what it was about. And it was the first time I saw how funny a motivational speaker can actually be. Well, I was like, man, and it was a huge inspiration.
That's another $20.
Right, another $20. Yeah. Because I had, up to that point, I had been speaking for just a few years, and I was part of this National Speakers Association, or NSA, and our Kansas City chapter had an annual kind of a banquet meeting, and Mark was the featured guest. And they read the intro I'm about to read, which is like just so brilliant. And then to hear him speak, it was just like funny story, hilarious, point from that story, and then funny stories funny, point. I was like, oh, that's how you give a speech, right? You don't just give point. You give these stories, these examples, and then ties to this point. I mean, it's just so incredible, man. But I want to read your introduction because every time I hear it, I love this, and I finally get to read it. So here we go. This is Mark's stage introduction before a keynote speech. Our guest today has merged together his background as a corporate lobbyist and nightclub performer to create a very unique and hilarious presentation style. He will make you laugh while he makes you think, and that's why he's known as the corporate comedian. He has received the Certified Speaking Professional designation from the National Speakers Association and has also been inducted into their Speaker Hall of Fame. This was, of course, after they minimized their standards. Big laughs from the groups on these points. There's no groups here, but very funny stuff. Okay, then he has shared the stage with a wide variety of celebrities like Paul Newman, Peter Frampton, Rachel Platten, and Bob Newhart, and was voted one of the top 5 funniest people in his family.
5 of us.
There's only 5 of them, in case you didn't catch that. He has received 2 degrees magna cum laude. See, I don't even know how to say that. How could I ever achieve that? Magna cum laude.
Say it with a
laude.
Magna cum laude.
Okay.
Magna
grade me on this. He has received 2 degrees magna cum laude.
Oh, very good.
All right, cool. Good. Nice. From Kansas State University. Hey! Fist bump. My alma mater as well. We can get to that. And he served as president of his 8th grade class 2 years in a row.
Yes. Yeah. Term limits. It was term limits. That's what kept me from 3.
Nice. Oh, my goodness. He is the author of 5 books and has colored several more.
Yes.
He is a member. I love this. Like, there's not a better introduction than this. Every speaker needs this introduction. Just use it. Just use it word for word, speakers. Just change the name, right? He is a member of MENSA, which requires an IQ of 160.
No, Mensa.
Mensa. See, this is why you never have me intro you.
What did you call it? MENSA.
MENSA. I have Mensa. All right.
Mensa. That's for, go ahead.
Okay, all right. He is a member of Mensa, which requires an IQ of 160. Actually, he and his brother have a joint membership. Oh, that's so good. If you like to laugh and learn, then you will surely enjoy Mark Mayfield. Woo!
Let me tell you why I did this. The reason I did this, now I make sure that there are some MCs or company execs that are not comfortable with punchlines. I say, okay, there's a ... before the punchline. I said, just leave that out if you want to. But the reason I do it is because I don't want people to think that what I'm going to talk about, particularly with this subject of mental health, that it's going to be a boring professorial lecture or something. I want to set the stage. It's going to be fun. Even though it's a serious subject. So that's why I came up with that. And I've written some for some other speakers too that said, you write me one. So obviously I didn't use that, but
I changed my introduction after I heard this one. Not to his, but with punchlines in it, because we don't. It's not like a comedian at a comedy club that has like a host and then a feature and the crowd's warmed up. It's like this morning you were on at 9 a.m.
Cold start.
Cold group, 700 people. And it's like, big room, and it's like you got the MC, you got someone reading your introduction, and then you're on, baby. Like there's really no warm-up act. So this serves as sort of a warm-up act. And it's funny because you'll be up there and you'll kind of be doing the hand signal. They'll say 5 years in a row and you'll hold up 5. So you kind of already got him like, oh, this guy's going to be fun. I mean, like your website says, and this is true, this is what he does. He talks about serious stuff in a funny way.
Yeah.
And this intro, they don't really need to say what you're going to talk about because you're going to tell them, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's and you've had so many different topics over the years that it was kind of like nice to just use the same intro every time. So anyway, that sort of helps you get to know Mark a little bit, and that was fun for me. Thanks for letting me do that.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'll have them to put on stage. Here he is today to talk about, and if they want to put their topic in there. And of course, other than mental health, quilting is I talk a lot about quilting.
He quilted that shirt.
Yes, I did. Yeah. No, I didn't. I can't. No. I don't know why I said that. Where'd that come from?
I don't
Just
know.
Kind of bang,
I don't know.
Popped in. Yeah.
Well, before we get to all things mental health, let's do a little background.
Yep.
Okay, how we met.
Okay.
Right?
Well, we met at the NSA thing.
Yeah.
I didn't remember that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
But
Dang, I'm memorable.
No, it was like, hey, hi, and I was like, hey, hi,
yeah, you're a little
But we
busy.
had never met before. I didn't know you were a speaker or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But the memory, the meeting memory I have is I was coming back from Arizona, and my daughter delivered early, the twins, and I didn't get back in time. I got there like the day after they were delivered. I was driving back in an RV, and walked into the hospital, and I'm, they're in the NICU unit and so forth, going to see my daughter, and then you ran into me and you go, Mark Mayfield. And I went,
He totally, I know if you're listening, you're not seeing this, but it was like who are you?
What?
And why do you know me? Like, do I owe you money? That was the look you gave me.
I did something to you, didn't I?
Yeah. Well, what he didn't know in that moment is that I was like kind of a follower at that point, because I had seen him speak in Kansas City at NSA, but I had also seen you on the main stage of the national convention for NSA.
Oh,
right?
okay.
You were up there with Steve Rizzo, and you hosted the CS
The Hall of Fame banquet.
The Hall of Fame banquet, yeah, and you were hilarious, and I was like, whoa, this guy, and you were already a Hall of Fame speaker. You've been doing this forever, and we were both from Kansas City. Then you lived in Arizona. And so I just knew all this about you, and I honestly, it kind of felt like
borderline stalking.
It borderline stalking.
Borderline stalking.
It was, and it was kind of like celebrity factor to me, because within NSA, you were highly respected, highly known, and I kind of thought, I can't really reach out to this guy because he's too high, really. And so when I ran you into the hospital, I remember my wife had our baby at the same time, right? So. I remember it was a Sunday. After we had the baby, my wife took a nap. Baby was sleeping. I was like, I'm going to get outside and get a little fresh air. I get down off the elevator, walk out. Who's there? I was like, Mark Mayfield. And I mean, in that moment, I knew, okay, this guy is gold. He's amazing.
I didn't say I came to see my twins, did I? Because I may have fumbled the words, and you might have thought,
you had twins?
You have twins?
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, rarely do you become a really close friend of someone who you were a huge fan of at one time. So it's like, think about someone that you're just like, you idolize, you kind of see them in a celebrity type circle in your mind. And
PayPal, Venmo.
Yeah.
Okay.
PayPal, Venmo, whatever. And then all of a sudden, you're like besties, and you're road tripping together, you're gigging together, you're podcasting together. And it was like, honestly, like a dream come true. That was such an incredible moment.
All right. Well,
awesome.
I'm flipping the page right now. Now that we're on this mutual admiration moment, one of my favorite sayings is, "You are measured by the company you keep." That was one of my dad's sayings. Today I quoted some of those things. I can still hear my dad, even though
you were naming off your dad, your grandpa's old sayings, your dad's sayings. Like,
I just
awesome.
And I always thought that was a sign of a great teacher, great presenter, great speaker, whatever, great mentor. And I did. One of his sayings was, "You're measured by the company you keep," and I knew immediately you're the real deal. Let's be honest, in every profession. There are some people that have done okay, made it to the top even, that don't walk the talk. They're kind of fake or whatever. I want real people in my company. And so I'm honored to have you as a friend, so it's a mutual deal, Plus two, he talks about talent. This guy's, you got more talent in your little finger than I just blabber. You have a multitude of skills. I am a master, jack of all trades, but master of very few, fairly good golfer, fairly good ball player, fairly good musician, but you are extraordinary in so many categories. I admire you, dude. So you got to give me the $20 back.
Yeah, it's yours. There you go. Take it back, man. That was good.
Thank
you, man. I definitely received that. And the nice thing about what he's saying right now is he always says this to me, right? Like, it's not like this is the first time I'm hearing you say this. You've always believed in me. You've always seen something amazing in me. Even after some of my biggest failures in my career, you've said, hey, like the America's Got Talent, story. You're like, hey man, you need to take that to stage and talk about that. And and so he's just always encouraged me, been a mentor, been a coach, but most of all been a friend. So
thanks.
Yeah, man. Well,
back at you, bro.
So you're like me. You're a family man. Let's tell me about your family, because you talk about them a lot in your keynote with good reason. So tell us about your family.
I was raised on a farm, and I'm a small town guy and a big family guy. 6 kids in our family. And so family's always been critical. In fact, it's funny you mentioned that, because just 2 weeks ago we had a huge family reunion. It was awesome. Our family's tight, and we don't have any bums in the group, I mean, they all love each other.
I've met them. I know your brothers. Elton has hired me for a long time ago for a Boy Scout thing.
Yeah, it's all great. And so I'm big on family, and particularly my family. I've got 2 daughters. I will talk about this in a moment, but I recently lost my wife. And I've got 4 grandkids. Each daughter has 2 kids, and everybody says they're really tight with their kids and their grandkids. I've always had a special connection with them. I remember taking them to gigs when they were small. One of the benefits of what we do is that we don't have to go to a shop at 8 to 5, or whatnot. And so, like, whenever it was a field trip day at school or parents' day or whatnot, I would go. I would go, because me and all these moms, well, and of course all the second graders.
You're wondering why he's a professional speaker? You just found out why.
So I would be there with, and all the kids wanted to, and I'm a kid at heart. And so I tell people all the time, I can connect to a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old or whatever. And so I'd go to their schools and go to their field trips, and we just have a blast. And so I've had this special, I was a parent for sure, and I was a strict, parent. But at the same time, I've been buds with my kids and grandkids, and my grandkids tell me things that I'm not going to share, because it'll make other grandparents feel bad that they don't have that. Really tight and connected to my family, and this most recent thing that I've had to deal with, they got me through it. No, I no bones about it. And we'll talk about that in a second whenever the time's right. But I am blessed. I am really, really blessed to have. And, you can't pick your family. You're stuck with them. And, man, I got stuck with the best.
Well, and, you're an incredible father, grandpa, son, brother, husband. You're everything. You somehow balanced all of it. Now, here you go. Give me that.
Man, this game will never end.
Thank you. Never end. But so you recently took the twins on a trip. We're talking like, what are you, like 40 years old now? He's 40 years old now, and he's still doing.
I have underwear older than 40. I do. I seriously do. In fact, I'm wearing a pair of 40-year-old underwear.
You're wearing underwear today?
Yeah. Normally I don't, but today. It's a podcast. You don't know.
So, but you took these kids down, because now you live in Tucson like half the time. You took them down there. What'd you do?
Here's the thing. A lot of people think I moved to Arizona, and I did that for Terry's health reasons. She was better in the arid climate, and so, but I didn't really move there. I am basing out of wherever I'm working at the time. So if I'm working West Coast, Rockies or whatever, Tucson is a better place for me. It's a shorter hop. If I'm working Midwest, I'll base out of Kansas City. I have built myself, that was one of the benefits of having your dad, who was also a contractor. I built a suite at my daughter's place. And, hey,
your watch is talking.
My watch is talking. We're going to get rid of that. And so, pardon me. So I have a suite at my daughter's and son-in-law's, and so I'm there all the time. And so I bounce back and forth. But the grandkids still like coming to Arizona. So we're done with 2 rounds. I have 1 more grandson to bring out to Arizona, and we kill a week. And it's awesome. I probably had more fun doing this stuff than the grandsons did. I had the grandson twins out, just got back from that. We went hiking. We went to museums. We've done the Air and Space Museum. We got the zoo. Arcades.
40 years old, and he's still doing this stuff.
Yeah. I'm bumping another decade here real soon. So yeah, I'm here again. I'm blessed. We laugh and joke. We watch the movie. Go to the movie.
Give me a couple of the fun quotes from your grandkids. That
Well,
you use in your
I got a million of them. One of the most recent I didn't share today. I don't know if I've told you this one, but one of my grandsons looked at me the other day and he said, and I'm looking at the camera, so he goes, Papa, why do you paint your eyebrows black? And so, well, thanks for pointing that out, Arch. I appreciate that. And so now the problem with that is that when I look in the mirror, that's all I see. It's like I'm looking at Eugene Levy, and that's probably all you're looking at right now. It's
all I'm going to.
That's all you're going to see from that point forward. So they're constantly, when I didn't realize before I had grandkids how much material there was there, and ever since they were small, they're growing on it. You just keep adding more material, and now they're at the age where they're giving me material that is like solid wisdom, and it's way beyond their years, In addition to the funny stuff, one of the first ones I remember was when Delaney, I don't know what they're studying at school, but she asked me if I was a pilgrim, so, but it's fine. I said, I get a ton of material from them, and now that I'm talking about mental health, those 4 grandkids for me have been a source of therapy, if you will, and they keep me on the straight and narrow. They keep me centered. I don't know what to do without them. I really don't. And even today I said, I'm not the therapist. They are. They help. I think they help me far more than I help them. They're, like I said, I'm blessed again. Blessed.
Yeah, I can relate. My kids are the same for me. They don't know how much they're helping me. Just a hug.
Yep.
Is like, I'm okay now.
Yeah.
Man,
well, Archer the other day, he comes running into my room, into my suite. He's on the other end of the house, and he comes running there and he goes, "I didn't come for any reason. I just came to say hi and to give you a hug."
Yeah.
And a 12-year-old, is that normal? I didn't do that as a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
As a 12-year-old, I was like going, "Where's my ball glove? I want to throw the ball."
Goosebumps. I don't know why, because I know the power of that, man. Just like a kid.
Well, and that's one of the things I talk about in mental health is communication, relationships, and so forth. And it can also be professional communication, therapeutic communication. I certainly don't knock that. It's been a wonderful help for many people in my family, including myself. But just confidants and friends that you can share anything with and talk about deep, heavy stuff. My grandkids all know they can come in and talk to me about anything, and they do. They'll come in and share stuff that I don't think they'd share with a lot of other people. I know when my granddaughter, she had a quasi boyfriend, as much as you can have at 12, and then they decided that they weren't boyfriend girlfriend anymore. Broke her heart. She came to talk to me about it. And then of course I went and I smacked that kid around.
Yeah, that's what you do.
That's what you do as a grandpa. No, it's all good. She's all good.
The kid's fine.
The kid's fine. He's only in the hospital a couple days, and he'll be all right.
Your daughters are awesome. They have amazing significant others. Tell us about them a little bit.
My daughter, she's married to a guy, Leah, and I'll talk about that. Leah is a great example of mental health progress. She was in the middle of the Las Vegas suicide or the Las Vegas shooting. And yes, it was suicide. The shooter then took his life because he's chicken. But somehow survived 1,100 bullets. I don't know how still. It was a blessing. I don't know how she did. Her and her friends, they took cover in a porta potty, and she called me. And that night, it was really weird because that night when she called, you'd think, I would freak out. And I thought, if you'd tell me this is going to happen, I would go, oh my God, I'd never handle it. Instead, it was just like, and I was more calm than I've ever been. I knew where she was, popped on, I got on Twitter. I got a feed from a Las Vegas TV man who had police scanners going. I knew where where everything was going. I knew 45 minutes before they put it on the TV ticker. But I was so calm, and just, I got her out of there, and then the next morning is when it hit me that I almost lost my kid. And I literally remember, today I talked about panic attacks and anxiety and so forth. I had a panic attack in the shower. I was showering the next morning and literally fell to my knees. It was just like I couldn't catch my breath. I just started crying uncontrollably. Why didn't I do that when she called? I don't know.
Can you? I mean,
there's a higher power, my friend. Yeah. There's a higher power, and I got her through there. I got her out of there. And that, by the way, that TV anchor man, I got in touch with him later, and I told him, I said, "You saved my daughter's life. You know that." And we've had several good conversations since. But anyway, So she survived that and struggled afterwards. Survivor syndrome, PTSD. Incorrect medications, incorrect treatment, and so forth. Went through a dark phase, and then met her husband, and Hutch. You've met Hutch.
I've met Hutch. Words can't describe this guy.
This guy
is amazing.
His
personality.
He's a mountain of a man.
He's huge.
He's a mountain of a man. In fact, Scotty Burrell, who played for the Chicago Bulls, Hutch broke his high school rebounding record.
Really?
Yeah. He's a mountain of a guy, but has to be that big, as I say, to house his heart. Yeah. He should be a cruise director because he's just, how you doing? Can I get you something? How are you doing? And he has been a blessing to our family.
Well, multiple times when I've been with you on the phone, you're like, Hutch is taking me out to lunch now. Got to go. Like over and over again. I'm like, what?
Yeah. So there's Hutch, and then my other daughter. Her and her ex-husband are great co-parents. They do great, as does Leah and her ex-husband. Mm-hmm. But Lindsay was a pediatric nurse, and then she met Eric Stonestreet, the star of Modern Family. And the first question people always ask is, he played Cam. He's gay. No, he's an actor. That's how that works. But he would come in Kansas City. There's a thing called the Big Slick, big fundraiser for Children's Mercy Hospital.
Yeah, I've gotten to work that a couple times.
Awesome. All the stars would come to the Children's Mercy Hospital where she was a charge nurse, and Rob Riggle and Paul Rudd and all these guys, Sudeikis and Eric. Yep. Well, let's just put it this way: Eric took a shining to my daughter, and anyway, they were friends way before they ever started seeing each other, and they're building a big house together right now. They're getting married very soon, but they want to get the house done first.
Okay,
so,
very cool.
And he's, as you might guess, very funny guy. In fact, if you want somebody to follow, if you're not a social media guy, just follow him on Instagram. Because he's always posting something that's hilarious. He's non-political. He doesn't get into that foray at all. Half of the things he posts, he's making fun of my daughter. And here's what you should know. It was her idea most of the time. It's hilarious. And you can go back through the posts and you'll just crack up. He does a lot of stuff with his mom. Of course, big Chiefs fan, does a lot of stuff with the Chiefs. Yeah.
Well, it's the perfect ingredient. Her being your daughter with the humor in her background, and then him being like the star of a TV sitcom, and then making videos about like where she can laugh at herself, he can laugh at himself. It's like the perfect ingredient for someone who's fun to follow.
Well, the last one I remember, without giving it away, she was wearing this big poncho. It was like a Chiefs poncho or something. I don't remember. I'll probably get the parts of this little video wrong. And he's narrating it, and he says, "Well, put that on," and it's this massive poncho. And then he just goes, "Is that too small?" And she is the master of face gestures, and she just gives him one of these. It's brilliant. So follow Eric on Instagram. Yeah. But Hutch and Leah, Eric and Lindsay, and my 4 grandkids are a blessing. I'm lucky. I'm so lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great, man. Thanks for sharing about that.
Yeah.
That's great. So I also want to hear, I know the story, I want the listeners to hear the story about just your journey to becoming a professional speaker, starting with your first speaking engagement to where you are today. Just give us kind of an overview flyby.
All right, well, this will, if they can do math, they're going to figure this out pretty quick. My first paid engagement was in 1971. Yes. Yes.
Well, from the womb, you said,
yes,
right?
Yes, from the womb, yeah. I actually, my first birthday card was a stone tablet. Yeah. Been doing it a while. Well, anyway, and I got $25 to go tell some old farm jokes to a group of farmers. And I thought, well, as he says, what a country. And so I thought, what? They gave me money for this, And so that was 1971. I got $25. So since then, doubled my fee.
Today, you doubled that fee, finally.
Awesome. Still telling the same old farm jokes.
That's right. Yeah. Well, yeah.
So no, but so that's how I kind of got started. But then the reason that happened is because I was involved in a youth organization. Now it's called the FFA. Back then it was the Future Farmers of America. And I just went through the ranks. It kind of, people find something that hits their hot button. That hit mine because there was a lot of competition. You obviously learned about agriculture. In fact, I wanted to be an ag teacher, and I was an ag teacher after that for a while. But going through the FFA ranks, I ended up as national president back in the mid-'70s. And you learn how to talk if you didn't know before. I tell people speaking a lot of times like bowling. If I had you bowl every day, like 8 hours a day, after a year, you're going to develop some competence for it, or you're at least going to find out whether you can do it or not. That's basically, as National FFA president, that's what I did. I every day traveled, had to drop out of college. I was speaking to high schools, sponsors, Kiwanis Club, anybody and everybody. I remember one day I had 8 speaking engagements in one day because Arkansas at that time did not believe in school consolidation. And so they had a high school every 8 miles, and literally I'd walk in the assembly. They're already in their stands. I'd speak for 45 minutes, and then you get in the car. We'd go 10 miles to another high school, and 10 miles, and
8 in one day.
8 in one day. 8 speeches one day. So that's where it kind of got started, and obviously that ended after a year. But because of that, I got asked to speak at a couple of national ag meetings, and then I got ask more and more and more and more and more, and it just spin off business. It's how I put myself through college.
And now you do one in 8 days.
Yeah.
It's like you
way better.
Earn that, right?
Way better. Yeah. But it's how I put myself through college, and then. But I remember. See, I had a mentor, and nobody in the audience will know this except for some of the old timers. There are some old timers that started the National Speakers Association, and one of them was a guy by the name of Ken McFarland. He was from my hometown, little small town, Caney, Kansas. He was on General Motors speaking board. He was a superintendent. He was one of the original founders of the NSA. He's one of the first guys in the Hall of Fame from my little hometown. And so everybody knew Ken McFarland in my hometown. And so I met with him when I was right out of FFA thinking, I got this. I'm as good as you. I can do this, and I'm a lot younger. And he put me in my place. And I remember him saying this: any audience can legitimately ask, why should I listen to this guy? And he just looked at me and said, you ain't done nothing. And I thought, wait, I was National FFA president. No, you haven't done. You need to accomplish something. And so that's when I realized, oh. And he's right. And if you look at all the speakers that are substantial, they all did something. They were successful salesperson. They were in recruiting. They were, they were a teacher. They were a minister. They were something. They did something, and that develops you a base of knowledge. Well, so I took that to heart. Now, I still was doing little stuff on the side. I was speaking at high school graduations and 4-H clubs and stuff like that. But then I taught school, and then I was a lobbyist in Washington, D.C. for over 10 years, and that kind of developed the base. In fact, for a long time, the only program I had was called Political Realities. And it was just about how things work in D.C. and how the importance of civic involvement. And it's a shame that only 23% of our people vote in the general election and yada, yada. It's much better now. But that's how I kind of started. And I realized immediately that you couldn't just talk. You had to... It had to be funny or entertaining, or you better juggle or dance or do magic or something. You can't just stand up there and lecture.
In that kind of setting over and over. I mean,
So I started interjecting humor, and some of my first programs were like, in the political arena, there was a political satirist called Mark Russell, and I kind of patterned myself after him. And so it was all political satire and so forth. I don't do that anymore because I don't know any of those people anymore. Back then, it was Bob Dole and Jerry Brown and, people that are long gone. And so that kind of got me deeper into the corporate world. And then I really grabbed hold of the comedy thing. I did some comedy work. I had a nightclub for a while, did a comedy show every Friday and Saturday night there. It was also a dance club. And so anyway, I kept throwing stuff against the wall. And then something finally hit.
Man.
Yeah.
So... that's it's your journey. It's amazing. Everyone has a different start because people always say to me, "How do you get started in speaking?" I'm like, "Well, you start doing the magic when you're 11 years old, and you're kind of like, well, you drop out of college and start traveling Kansas and speaking to Kiwanis and FFA groups, and so it's like everyone has to find their own journey with anything that you're doing. There's no like one road there, That's what I love about yours. It's so different from my background, So okay, I'm gonna throw a question at you. This is gonna make you think.
Oh no!
A little curveball at you
here.
You
said there'd be no thinking.
I know, dude.
Thinking.
Yeah. So, with comedy being in your background,
Yep.
do you have the worst I ever bombed story?
Oh, wow. I have so many of those. I can't.
Pick one that just comes to you. You know, if you can. I know, man. I'm putting you on the spot big time here.
Well,
Where he's like, I never bombed. I don't have a bombing story.
If anybody ever tells you that, they haven't died on stage. They're okay. They're a liar. Bottom line. Yeah, lots of times. There's, and I'm going to answer your question, but first, there are a lot of times when it wasn't us. Now, there are sometimes it is us. But when I was in college working on my master's, I mentioned this the other night to you. I had to develop a master's proposal, and I was speaking and working on the side. And there were some nights where the audience was really great, and then other times it wasn't. And so I did this study and identified 27 variables, obviously simple things like lighting and sound, but the tradition of the event, were there distractions? Did they have a happy hour? I mean, the makeup of the crowd, all this stuff. But so sometimes those create a situation where you're going to bomb. It's just
totally.
There's nothing you can do. And
it's like an ingredients for disgusting cookies.
That's right. You and I know when we're walking in the room, we can go, it's going to be a fight.
Yeah, like,
it's going
nope.
to be a fight tonight. And so the one I do remember, so many are just, my mind's being flooded right now. Yeah. But I remember one time in Idaho, in Boise, they told me this is going to be great. We got 1,200 people, all that sort of thing. And I walk into this huge auditorium I think it was a community college, I don't remember. And I had 7 people. Seven people. And so, and I asked the meeting planner, I said, I thought we had 1,200 people. And they said, well, yeah, they had an option this morning. They could either come hear you speak or breakfast. I choose breakfast over me. I want breakfast. I don't want to be here. And so trying to and if you're just lecturing or giving information, it's one thing. But if you have punchlines and programs and you're trying to be fun and you get no response.
Oh, yeah.
And they're looking at me like like my fly's open or something. I don't know. It was just.
Oh, by the way, I've been meaning
disaster.
To tell you.
Yeah, well, it's now a signature move. Oh, you want to hear something funny on that? Because we're digressing now. So I just recounted this because the person that was there reminded me of it. Years ago, I'm doing this thing in Moline, Illinois. And, I have this habit, always do, right before I go on stage, whether it's a luncheon, banquet, meeting, kickoff, whatever, step outside, step away, check the body, And I went to the restroom, and it is a banquet affair. I went to the restroom.
You got to touch up those eyebrows, too.
Yeah, right? I've got some black paint I got to put here. So I come back, and I sit down next to the meeting planner, and the meeting planner says to me, he says, I need to ask you a question. Is your fly open? Now, okay, background. I did this.
I've never been asked that question, by the way. Yeah. By a meeting planner, anyway.
Yeah. So, and I hadn't been either, so why would I think I would? But here's the deal. So I was a substitute. And when they called me because the speaker was sick and so forth, I said, I can do it, but I got to see if I can get out the next day because I've got another engagement I got to get to.
Yeah.
And so the entire dinner conversation between us was about flights and going places and, airlines and stuff like that. So when he said, is your fly open? I thought he said, is your flight open?
Oh, no.
And so when he said, is your fly open? I just looked at him and went, yeah. and he kind of did this. He kind of goes, he said, what do you mean? And I said,
oh my God.
It's normally open this time of the year. So now he's like going, what? And I said, when it's not busy, it's open.
The tags never end.
No, you could go on.
Oh my God.
And so I completely forgot about this until there was another speaker that day that I knew. He's an old friend of mine. He called me. He said, you remember Moline? And I went, oh, I completely forgot about this. He goes, he said, you got to work that in. It's the funniest speaker story ever. And I said, I had completely forgot about it. Yeah. So, and finally he looked at me. He goes, what are you saying? And I said, well, yeah, I've been checking 3 times. I've already checked in. The flight's open. He goes, not flight, fly. So.
Now you know I like road tripping with this guy. It's like this the whole time. Oh, man, and by the way, this is like, speakers out there, comedians, people who want to be funny, right? Try to invent funny things, or like they look at people like Mark and are like, why do so many funny things happen to Mark? They don't. You're just super observant, and you take notes of the things that have happened, and you turn it into comedy gold.
Yep.
Or you make a point out of it, right?
Yeah, well, and that's the whole thing. Jeannie Robertson, God rest her soul, she was brilliant. Yeah. She wrote a book. It was a very small book, and it was just called "Don't Let the Good Stuff Get Away." And that's the thing. And when I've done some work, with some chapters and speakers and so forth, and I tell them, I say, the first thing I want you to do is write your autobiography.
I was just gonna. I wrote that down. I went to one of your I've been to 2 or 3 of your workshops in the Funny or You deal, and you wrote that down, and I've written parts of it. I've never written the whole thing, and I need to, and that's because you told me to.
Well, and here's the thing: when you think about it, what do you often remember? You'll remember traumatic stuff, sure, but you also remember the funny stuff.
Totally.
I mean, just think of a family reunion. What did we do at this family reunion we just had? We sit around and we're telling old stories about. Do you remember when Eldon said that a nail wouldn't hurt his foot because he had a boot on and he stomped on? I mean. And if people would do that, they would find just a wealth of material. Yeah. But that's the main thing I do. And it used to be years ago, you had to have, you had to have a pencil and a piece of paper. You don't have to do that anymore. Every phone has a recording on it. You think of something, boom. My phone now, I've got about 8 recordings on there that I need to jot down and go, oh, hey, that's a good bit. There's an idea for a bit. Oh, I can't forget that. Signs, that sort of stuff.
You know, AI can transcribe that for you now.
I know. But I prefer to read it again because you get it recorded up here a little bit.
Yeah, this is no kind of AI promotion. Or is it?
Or is it?
Am I even saying this right now?
He's a hologram.
Is this the voice of Devin Henderson?
He is a hologram. He's not really here.
Dissolve. Oh my gosh. So I've seen you speak, at showcases a lot. We've road tripped. You and I and Dan Mears. Road tripped once to a showcase. Casey Wolf, one of the best dudes ever. That's another guy. Yeah. Future podcast interviewee right there.
He's unbelievable. He's unbelievable. He's amazing, I just talked to him yesterday on the drive up. He was driving to Memphis, and I was driving up here to Minneapolis, and we talked for over an hour. Yeah. And then I talked to somebody else, and they said, "Who were you just talking to?" And I said, "The Wolf." And they went,
Wolf.
What? Yeah, he's the Dan Mears is the Kansas City mascot. Only job he's ever had, other than being a mascot in a couple other places.
Yeah, St. Louis Cardinals, and
just a wonderful human and makes a difference and a great presenter, and
I'm going to see if he'll get Mahomes on for me too. I think that shouldn't be too big of an ask, right?
Nobody's asking to do that. No, he's got plenty of time.
Well, okay, so. Mark, this is the Possibility Mindset podcast. I've seen Mark demonstrate what I call the possibility mindset, which is that just means that you never stop asking the question, what else is possible, right? And along those lines, I remember you talking about change management and how you cannot manage change, you have to create change. Yep. We were talking about this just yesterday.
How do you remember all this stuff?
I write down everything you say. It's in my notes. I've had it transcribed from my voice memos. AI. Yeah. I'm gonna have a new sponsor soon. AI is gonna be sponsoring me.
They're calling you.
So I've seen you do that. I've seen you not just like manage change and new topics in the world. How do I adjust to that? You have changed your keynote. Yeah. To this new format that it's such a deeper level. I mean, you already had a great keynote of how to de-stress using humor. That has gone, and I wasn't even thinking that needs to go deeper. I don't think your clients were even thinking, Mark, can you go deeper with that? It has just taken this deep dive into the area of mental wellness, suicide prevention. And I've just seen you morph into this. And so talking about what else is possible for Mark Mayfield, this new keynote called Find Your Day, and I got to finally see it, the full thing this morning, and it was such a blessing. I know it's making a huge difference in organizations, in individuals. You're getting incredible feedback afterwards. Your calendar's busier than it's ever been.
It is.
You're more excited to speak than ever since I've known you, and it's just been this whole new thing for you. And we talk about in our careers to stay excited, even as speakers, we have to always be reinventing. Well, this is something that just kind of, yes, it came to you, it kind of fell in your lap, and we're just blessed to know the people you know, to have the experiences that you've had, even though they've been challenging, to really be able to speak to this firsthand. And so if we do have any young listeners, I don't know, if your kids are listening, we're going to kind of be getting into the matters of mental health, suicide. So just be mindful of it. Nothing incredibly heavy, but just,
and let me
be
add
aware.
to that is that's one, everybody, you look for a niche or a hook or whatnot. Mm-hmm. I talk about mental health in a hilarious way. That sounds like an oxymoron.
Right.
Trust me, it can be done. And I think that's what's made this thing kind of jump off the charts, is because before, if you said, well, he's a mental health speaker, oh my gosh, we're going to talk about suicide numbers and depression. It's going to be so sad. And no, that's one of the ways that you beat mental illness is by positivity and humor. And so you can do it. Yes, are there some very serious parts of the program, even sad, even tearful, even for me? Yeah. But the overall theme of it, it's fun, it's energetic, and so forth. But I want to bounce back to one thing that you said. Yeah. You said something about morphing and adding material and so forth. I'm going to go back to Dr. McFarland. One of the things he told me, it was the best piece of advice I ever got. He said, every show you do or every speech you do, whatever you want to call it, I call them gigs, I call them shows. You want to call them speeches, pick your word. But every one that you do, add at least one new thing. It can be something as simple as a new facial gesture, or it can be a new story, or it can be a new bit, or a new point, but he said, add one new thing every time you go out there. Now, here's what that does. And he's right when he told me this. First of all, it makes you kind of jazzed up. Hey, I'm going to do a new bit. I'm going to try a new thing. I'm going to see what this is, So you kind of get keyed up a little bit because you're excited about it. But the main thing is, over the course of time, how much more stuff do you develop? And that's why I tell people all the time, I got a lot of stuff floating around up in here because I've never stopped adding. And sometimes I'll go back and listen to some old tapes or whatnot, or CDs or cassettes or
8-tracks
or beta, stone tablets.
Yeah.
And I'll go, I forgot about that. Oh, that's a good bit. I ought to revitalize that. I ought to contemporize it or whatever. And so I just made up a word, contemporize.
Contemporize.
Is it a word?
It is now, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
AI just
expanding.
made it. It's in the dictionary.
I'm adding. That's the thing I added today, contemporize.
Boom.
Yeah. So, and that's how this came about. The stress program just kept getting bigger because I kept adding and adding and adding. And then COVID hit, and then the mental health crisis finally came to the forefront, which it should have a long time ago. And then I finally dug out some stuff from my past and said, it's time to talk about it. And anyway, that's how it happened. And so there are a million techniques and things to do. I'm going to do this now.
Do it.
If you go to my website, there's a couple things you can download and get more information on. One of the things all of us have triggers that can give us toxic thoughts and can put us down a path that we don't want to go. And those triggers can be something that reminds you of something tragic in your past, or just something that you're scared of or feared of or whatever. And so I've developed what I call trigger tips, and it's what you do when you have those triggers. And some of them are my ideas, some work for me. A lot of them are from experts and so forth, and I've developed 14 of them. I and experts have put together this 14. If you'll go to my website, markmayfield.com/trigger tips, you'll see those 14. It's just a one-page thing, but there's a brief explanation of what they are. Now, some of them are real simple, like breathe. That can stop a panic attack. That can stop anxiety. That can stop you from falling down the steps of stress. And so, in fact, if you ever noticed, EMTs, when they come to a scene, a car accident, what's the first thing they tell the people? All right, I want you to just breathe. I just want you to breathe. Yeah. So, meditation, medication, progressive muscle relaxation. There's 14 of them. I won't get into all of them. There's a couple there that I use that are the ones that work for me. Find one or two of those. And then when you have that moment, you can kind of bank on that. And I have those two things that I can be off whack and just, and then and all I do is I do those two things, and it's like, oh yeah, all good.
It's like that perspective thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Getting that distance.
Yeah. That's what all stress management techniques do, and a lot of stuff in mental health is that the reason we do get stressed out, and by the way, that's a real deal. A lot of people think stress, it's just all in your head. Well, yeah, it's partially in your head for sure, but it causes physiological impact on your body, and that's what a lot of people don't realize. I didn't for a long time. I was raised on a farm. I was 16 before I realized my name was not "Suck it up, son." That's just what we did. Rub some dirt on it. Let's go. And it took me a while to figure out. Oh, you know what? Yeah, there's heart rate, blood flow, oxygen transfer, acid buildup. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes on here when stress is there. Now, one of the key things, it's what I open with, so I'm kind of going backwards here, is to make sure that it's really stress. What we do, we put a lot of stuff in the stress pile that doesn't belong there, and that's a self-taught thing, and you got to work on that. And that's why I use these trigger tips, is because then I go, wait a minute, you know what? Well, for example, today, we're sitting at the table. The lady spills her coffee, and immediately jumps up, oh my God, and just starts freaking out and so forth. But this was the beauty of it. This was after we got done. The one lady looked at the other one and goes, 6 o'clock. Because my mom had a rule that if it'll make the 6 o'clock news, it's stress. And if it don't make the 6 o'clock news, it's not stress. And so it's inconvenience. So we'll deal with it. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't don't get messed up over it. Yeah. And so it was like, yes. When I hear that, it was like, yeah. And that's one of the kind of the weird things. I'll be walking down the hall and somebody will have something, and I'll hear somebody go, 6 o'clock, and they'll go, oh yeah, it's okay. And so that's what these trigger tips are. 6 o'clock is one of them, by the way. Yeah. But I encourage you to do that. And this is applicable to all ages. My granddaughter, she's going through a growing phase and you've got girls, how this can be and so forth. And she has music. That's one of the 14 trigger tips. When she gets your girlfriends and school and work and her golf swing's not where it should be and she had a bad session and all that, iPod in, and she's not listening to, headbang and hard rock music. Yeah. It's mellow music. So, yeah. Anyway, trigger tips. Key.
That's good. And while we're on the line, along the line of tips, what's the suicide crisis hotline?
Yeah, and this is so great. Is the fact that we're finally starting to do something about it. They used to say the A's kept us from doing anything about it. One was acceptability, because mental health is, you can't talk about that.
Oh, right.
Now we're getting past the acceptability. Yeah. Yep. The affordability issue. A lot of people couldn't do that. Well. Now there's a lot of ways around that. In fact, I just did a benefit for a mental health center, and it's for people that can't afford it, and they obviously their doors are flooded, but they're accessibility. I do a lot of work in rural America, and accessibility of mental health help. It's not very fluid there because there's just not enough people per capita, for it to have a lot of mental health experts. And that's why mental health in rural communities has also skyrocketed up. They're isolated a lot of times. Right. And particularly a farmer or producer, and in agriculture, the suicide rate's far higher than people think it is. You're out in the field by yourself. No social activity. Isolation factor is huge. Yeah. That's the thing about COVID that brought mental health up, is the lonely factor just was magnified, And so, anyway, 988's the number now. So easy. It'll soon be available in Canada too. I think in November. I can't remember, but we don't have to do that. 1-800-273-TALK.
Right. Just 988.
988. It's just like 911. Yep. So commit it to your memory or put it in your phone. The thing about that too is that they've changed it. It's not the National Suicide Line or the Suicide Hotline anymore. It's the National Crisis and Suicide Hotline. So if the word suicide triggers you, it's the National Crisis Hotline.
Okay.
And it's I know people that have used it. I've talked to a couple of people that have used it, and they said it's unbelievably beneficial. This isn't somebody, a telemarketer or something like that. Right. These are professionals, and they're calm and they get centered and like I said, I've talked to a couple of people that have used it, and they said it's phenomenal.
That's great. Yeah. Thank you. I want to share. Okay. So as much as you feel like sharing right now, I know you share a lot from stage about your past, your history, but just in terms of what parts do you want to share right now about the factors, the experiences in your life that allow you to talk to mental health on such a deep level?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I've had some people came up to me and say, what is your training?
Right.
What degrees do you have?
Yeah.
I'm not a clinical psychiatrist. I never make any amounts to do. Everything I talk about is experiential.
Yeah.
It's what
You're not a doctor. This isn't medical advice. This is experiential.
This is what's worked here, and I encourage you to at least try it. If it doesn't work, then we need to go elsewhere. The first thing is just recognizing it. First of all, that it's okay to talk about, and one thing I talk about some lifestyle changes that are like general stress management things, like make sure you're getting proper rest. Relaxation is critical to your physical health and mental health. Exercise is important. That's the weird thing. We've always talked about physical health, and why have we not talked about mental health?
Yeah.
Right. And so but we're getting there. We're making progress. I don't want to make it sound like, we are making progress in there. So exercise is critically important. Strong mind, strong body, all that stuff. Hobbies are a great release. Communication, I talked about that, whether it's a trained therapist or whether it's just a friend that you can share with. The power of humor. I talk about Bob Newhart. Other than working with you, he's been my highlight.
All right. So. You finally got it back, dude. You finally found the moment.
But he does this thing that I do with the audience, and I love it. I call it the Bob Newhart thing.
Yeah.
Where you put your hand against your, what do you see when you put your hand here? Well, you can't see anything. It's just kind of a blur. But when you back it up, you see your hand. And then he has a metaphor in his program. He does a comedy show, okay? But he has a message. And the message is humor gives you distance. All stress management tools give you distance. Humor, relaxation, exercise, communication, your religious beliefs, all the stuff I don't talk about. But all those give you distance. But sometimes you don't have time to do those. And that's why I talk about the trigger tips and some of those things, because you don't have time to go work out for a half hour to work out your frustration, or your best friend, you can't talk to her, your therapist is not available, or you don't have time to go do a crossword puzzle or a jigsaw puzzle if that's your hobby. You don't have time to do some of those behavioral lifestyle changes, but you do have time to do those things that I call trigger tips.
Yeah. So this keynote, Find Your Day, love the name of it, and there's a story that goes along with that. You can feel free to share that if you want to.
Yeah, I'd love to.
So
you're not going to let me share it?
No, I do want you to share it in the context of this question, though, possibly, is how does this help people at work be productive? Like, because you don't just talk to people and lifestyle, like you talk about helping organizations be more productive. It hits the bottom line. Attitudes matter. Humor matter. How does this impact the workplace?
Okay, well, that's one of the key things. After I talk about, getting your personal life in order and so forth, I let them know, okay, your personal life and your professional life, they're linked, intrinsically linked, and one affects the other. I don't know which affects the other more is immaterial.
Yeah, right.
They affect each other.
Yes.
Okay, so and I just throw these questions. Does state of mind affect productivity in the workplace?
Easy, yes.
Duh. Yeah. Does state of mind affect communication? In fact, that's one of the first things that happen when people are worried, stressed out, anxiety filled, whatever, they shut down. They stop talking.
Sure.
Okay. So we know the answer to that. Does it affect teamwork? Of course it does. Does it make the workplace more fun? Of course it. So
what about customer service?
Everything. Yeah. It doesn't matter what you talk about. And that's one other thing that when I talk about mental health, I want people to know, and you say you heard the whole program today. You heard the short version. I like to have almost 2 hours to do this because there's just
today was about 60 minutes.
Yeah, there's so much in there. But a lot of people don't realize that it just crosses and affects absolutely everything. Pick a topic: gun violence, tied to mental health. Marital relationships failing, tied to mental health. Drug abuse, tied to mental health. Work productivity, tied to mental health. I mean, you can almost, now I'm not saying they cause it, but there's an interface almost all the time. And so that's the importance of this, is that we're not just talking about, we have a happy family life and we watch movies together. No, I'm talking about work, and I'm talking about long-term stuff.
I mean, this is why huge organizations, corporations bring you in, right? Not just because you're hilarious and you're going to be an awesome keynote. It's like, this is going to make a difference for the Coca-Cola company, right? Like
Yep.
who you've spoken for recently.
Yep.
Like this is going to help our workers be more productive and effective and impactful in their work. I mean,
part of it too is
clear
the acknowledgement or the respect of it. You know, I tell people all the time because I tell some stories about and my customer service program was a lot of times about how people treated me so bad and they did this or that or whatever and so forth. But I also tell them, I said, you need to be respectful of them because you don't know what they're dealing with. Mm-hmm. Maybe they just lost a grandchild, for heaven's sake. Maybe they were in a car accident on the way to work. Maybe they're going through a divorce. I mean, you don't know, and so you can't hold them 100% accountable.
It's so hard to remember that everyone's dealing with something. Like,
but everybody
what's
is
their deal? But it's like, oh, yeah, and to step back from that.
Yeah.
What did Carnegie say? Before you criticize someone, walk a mile in their shoes.
Yep.
That way, once you criticize them, you're a mile away, and you have their shoes.
Yes, right. And they're painful if they don't wear the same size. So you gotta.
So okay, tell us, how did the Keynote get the name Find Your Day?
Okay, so I was doing this program in Indianapolis, and I'd always known about this story. It's a Nicolas Cage movie, actually. And I knew a little bit about the USS Indianapolis, but when you watch the movie, and the movie didn't do the story justice, and it didn't get that good of ratings.
I did see that movie, now that you mention it. Yeah, okay.
And it was about the USS Indianapolis, which was the last ship sunk in World War II. Shouldn't have happened. It did happen. It's a horribly tragic story. They were delivering some parts for the atomic bomb, actually. And so they were on radio silence returning, and they got hit by 2 Japanese submarine torpedoes. And they went down in 10 minutes. There were 1,200 sailors on that ship, and 300 or over 900 stuck in the water. 300 perished with the ship, and over 900 were left in the water. And because they were on this secret mission, and there was a breakdown into who was contacting who, nobody knew they were in the water. And they got discovered just by accident, 3.5 days later. Well, by that time, there's 316 left. The others had perished from their injuries, dehydration, starvation, drowning, and it's the biggest shark attack in the history of the world. It was just awful. But 317 survived. There's a debate whether it's 316 or 317. They just discovered another person that was actually there. But anyway, so 317 survived. They started having reunions in Indianapolis a few years after the war. Okay. And as you might guess, numbers, they dwindle down.
Yeah.
There's now only one left. He's out in California. I was just reading, they just put a statue in his name. He's still alive. He's in a wheelchair and so forth, but they just had this big honor for him. He was also their police chief in this town. He went back to his hometown for like 20 some years. So he's a legend in that town. But the guy that I got to see interviewed was Edgar Harrell, and he was the 6th remaining survivor at the time.
Okay.
And he was the last Marine on the ship. But anyway, I can't read enough about this. It's just so fascinating. Yeah. Anyway, so to learn how these people survived. Well, so they, at this reunion, which you'd think, well, it's a reunion of 6 people? No. They have friends, family, dignitaries, thousands at this reunion.
It's huge.
And so a TV reporter is going to interview Edgar Harrell, because at the time he's the last remaining Marine survivor that was on the Indianapolis. And the guy starts out innocent with a question. He just says, how you doing, Mr. Harrell? And Edgar Harrell says, he does this. Great! Doing great! And the reporter says, don't mean to be disrespectful, but, that seems a little odd because, you suffered serious injuries. You were part of the worst naval disaster in history. You lost so many of your friends. You have PTSD. You're in a wheelchair. You're on oxygen. What do you mean you're doing great? And I'll never forget this line. He looked at this guy and he just goes, ever since that day I got rescued, never had a bad day. Never had a bad day. What's your day, partner? And it was one of those things when you hear it, you just go, holy moly. Has there ever been a better saying? And so what he tells this guy, he goes, that's my day. What's your day? And I thought, yeah, that may be the best trigger response, or the best way to, what day did you think you weren't going to make it? But you did. And everybody's had a day like that, where you just got cold chills and almost fell you into anxiety, or things can't get any worse. We've all said that at one time. But you got through it, didn't you? We're far more resilient than we think. We don't give ourselves enough credit. And so I use that all the time. And whenever I think, this is awful, And then I think to my day, because I have a day. And that was October 1, 2017, which was the Vegas shooting, the Vegas massacre. And my daughter was right in the middle of it. And how 1,100 bullets missed her, I have no idea how. She called me from the bottom of a porta potty. And I got on social media. And it was, I was telling you earlier, this was one of the weird things where I should have been freaking out. But instead, I was so calm. And I just said, hon, where are you? In the porta potty. Stay there, stay low. I mean, it was like, I'm not a trained 911 responder, but I just kind of knew, and I popped on the TV. Ticker wasn't saying anything about it. I got on social media, found a Twitter feed from a TV anchorman in Las Vegas. He had 5 police scanners in his home, and he's broadcasting it. And he even said, this is against the law. He says, I can be fired for this, but he said, we got to do this. And so I'm hearing him, but he's also kind of interpreting him. So I knew everything. I knew before anything was on TV. I knew where the shooter was, where she was, he's Mandalay Bay. When he got silenced, got her out. I mean, I knew all this, and I got her out of there. And she and her 2 friends survived, and but sadly 59 didn't, and 900 were injured. It was just awful. It was just awful. I'm not going to mention the guy's name because he's chicken, and we shouldn't mention their names ever. People that do stuff like that. But that's what I learned that day. I learned, first of all, how much you love your kid when you think you're going to lose them. To learn what PTSD was and survivor syndrome, because she had both of those really bad. And I got my day, because since October 1, 2017, never had a bad day. The next day is when I realized, and the next day was when I came up with what I call the stair steps of stress. And it goes stress, anxiety, depression, and suicide. And we want to stay on that top step, because once we start going down the stairs, sometimes it's hard to stop. And everybody has stress. Again, I call it the steps of stress.
The steps of stress.
Yeah, you go stress, and you don't manage stress, you're going to have a moment of anxiety. And fully 25% of the people in this country have said they've had a full-blown panic attack. Another 25% have said close to. And panic attack, there's no doubt when you have it. You have trouble breathing. You can't catch your breath. Your knees may buckle. You may pass out. You feel all. I mean, that's a panic attack, and it's real. And so that's a sign you're down in anxiety. We got to stop this now. And so, but after anxiety comes in depression, and that can last years. And after depression is that final step. We want to stay on the top step.
Yeah.
And we have stress. We all have stress. I mean, I say stress. Sometimes maybe it's just inconvenience. But the deal is, people go, well, I wish I just didn't have any stress. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because stress helps you develop coping skills, problem-solving skills, relationship skills. In fact, not without naming names, some of the people that have dealt with depression more than anybody else, that didn't know how to deal with problems or cope with stress at all, were trust fund babies who never had a problem in their world, never had to deal with anything, and they go right down those steps. So stay on that stress step. And with Leah went, and she was quickly going down the stairs for lots of reasons, but now she's as good as gold, because she's got a great family. A lot of stuff I talk about is stuff that she does all the time, and she's better than she's ever been in her 40 plus years of life. Yeah. So that's where it came from. Find your day. What's your day? A day when you didn't think you're going to make it, and they did. Now let me put an addendum to this. That day can change, and I have a new day. I lost my wife pretty recently, and didn't think I was going to get through that. It's a hard day. Hardest part was telling the grandkids, and I told on stage today, it's only the second time I've done that. I think I'm going to keep it because it seemed to work. The grandkids were, well, first of all, Delaney was, she has deep faith, and she was the one telling me, we're going to be fine. You're going to see Grandma Terry again, all that sort of stuff. And she's 12. I don't know how a 12-year-old knows this, but between her church group and her kids and her friends and who she hangs around, yeah. Archer sends me texts every day. How you doing, Papa? We just want to say hi. But the twins were, and this is what I shared, the twins were unique, because I've got one twin that's a little brainiac, and after we wiped the tears, he says, so Papa, what was the genesis of Grandma Terry's chronic Lyme disease? 10! So, well, first let me look up the word Genesis, because because not a lot of 10-year-olds use the word Genesis, But then Reed, he's kind of an ornery little guy. He doesn't say much, but when he does, it's like a pearl of wisdom, like I said today. And he just he was just sitting there like this the whole time. And then he goes, Papa, the clothes you wear when you die, you're going to wear forever in heaven. So be sure and wear clothes that you really, really like. Solid.
That is solid advice.
Solid,
man.
right there.
I need to change, man.
Yes, yeah. Because those aren't your favorite clothes, are they? No. Anyway, so now, since a few months ago, since March 6, 2023, never had a bad day. Never had a bad day.
I think you can all see why this guy is an incredible speaker and making such an impact on people and organizations. Would you mind sharing, speaking of like the feedback you get afterwards, a couple of people have approached you lately. Is that anything you want to talk about, or you don't have to?
Yeah, I do, but I don't want people to think, that I'm not the hero of the story. But I do want people to know that this stuff I'm talking about. Much of the inspiration is my late wife. She struggled for 25 years. This is a former college athlete who the last 5 years was in bed, and the last year of her life was confined to her bedroom. Couldn't get out because she had constant seizures all day. However, never lost it. She kept her perspective. She kept her state of mind. She kept her... because of those things that I've just told you. She did all of those. So she's the inspiration in many, yes, I've read a lot of books. I've done so much research on this. I've talked to so many people about it. I've listened to so many people. But she was the real inspiration for all this. And I don't know where to go with other than she... Do what I've talked about today, because I know it works. I'm not a clinical psychologist. It's all experiential, like I always say. But this stuff really does. It works. It works.
Yeah, I called you an incredible grandpa earlier. Just an incredible husband. The way that the way you took care of Terry, just that whole time through the whole sickness, and especially there at the end, just always by her side, there any minute. You would have done anything for her, and I know she would have done the same for you.
Well,
and it was just
and I just have
amazing.
to add one thing. Yes, as a caretaker, but she wasn't a normal patient. She stayed so positive, and those things I talked about. She developed a hobby as a writer. She did not realize she was a writer. She's a great writer. She had a blog on chronic Lyme. She had thousands of followers. I just got back from a California recognition where she was recognized for her contributions to the Lyme community, and it just chilled me. You've got leaders of the biggest Lyme fundraising organization in the country standing up there saying, we have lost one of the greatest advocates. We have lost one of the greatest people in the Lyme community. And by the way, I was not Mark Mayfield at this event. I was Terry Mayfield's husband,
And that's kind of what you always are.
Yeah, that's what you are. Yeah. So anyway, it was, yes, she thanked me, not occasionally. She thanked me nonstop. It was a great person to be a caretaker for. So again, I was lucky. I was very lucky.
Yeah.
So.
Well, with that, the final call to action for the listeners, find your day, right?
Yeah.
Find your day.
That's a benchmark. It's a benchmark. If you made it through that day, we're going to be all right. Yeah.
Mark, how can people follow you?
Normally 6 feet. Okay. Social distancing.
You got a little,
No. Just sometimes my mic goes.
In fact, this is a little uncomfortable for you being this close to me.
Right? With the microphone.
Yeah, I had to sign a contract, and he had a writer.
Now, like everybody, the website, you can get in touch with me, markmayfield.com. All of my social media links are there. But markmayfield.com. And also, too, if you want, we talked a lot about the program, but I have another link there. It's called, if you go to markmayfield.com/playbook. It's bullet points of the program of everything I've talked about, kind of the content. It's not funny, but it's not supposed to be funny. It's the meat of my mental health program. And I just, we've focused on physical health for so long, which we should. I don't want us to just start focusing on mental health. It's going to fix a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff.
Hey man, thanks for doing this today.
Do I get the 20?
Yeah. Oh yeah, the $20. I couldn't find it. There it is. That's of course. He earned it back in the end. Hey, seriously.
It's a wash.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we broke even, man. We're at a casino, so it's
wow.
Good.
That's a win.
Good. That's a win. Yeah, man. Yeah. Man, it was so fun gigging with you, even though I still have to do my portion here in a few hours. But and just thanks for sharing.
I'm there for you.
Yeah,
it'll be right there.
I'm heckling.
Got the microphone. I got the signs.
I can't wait.
It's going to be great.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much.
All right,
man.
thanks, dude.
All right, yeah, for sure. Hey, y'all, thanks for joining us. And remember, we believe something greater is always possible for you.